We are back with our final segment of this hour-long edition of the Screen Team, being joined again by Matt. And Matt, we've got a movie that I like. I'm not sure yet if you like it or not. It's called To Perdition. It stars Tom Hanks. It was directed by Sam Mendes, who did another one of my personal favorites called American Beauty, which if you haven't seen, do so. It's awesome. But we got To Perdition. We've got Tom Hanks. He's the star. And Tom Hanks he's kind of a bad guy in this film, right?
He is kind of a bad guy. I mean, he's a family man and a devout father, a devout husband.
Yeah.
But he works for a local mob based out of the Midwest, old Chicago era, and kind of in the suburbs of Chicago.
Right.
And he does a lot of bad things to support his family. And so it kind of plays up the themes of violence and how that can change a good man, and conversely, how family can, save a man like that.
Yeah. So Tom Hanks being a bad guy, did you buy it?
I did. He was actually very believable as kind of a bad dude in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very believable in the shootout scenes. It felt like not like how Ben Affleck felt as Batman to me. And I don't buy certain people as tough guys. And Tom Hanks, it wasn't a transformative role because it still felt like Tom Hanks, but
right.
It's such a he's such a versatile actor. It doesn't even feel like he's playing a character actor or a wide variety of characters. It's still very familiar with him as a leading man, but it was just a different take with that, and it never took me out of the movie once. I loved him as a father figure in this film as well. They have a lot of themes of father and son bonding, and what they had to do to survive after his son witnesses one of their mob hits go down.
Yeah. You mentioned father-son themes. You have not only that with Tom Hanks and his son, but Tom Hanks is kind of like a son to Paul Newman's character, who's like the mob boss. And,
right.
And that draws some friction between Tom Hanks and Paul Newman's son in the film.
It does, yeah, absolutely, because his son, both of his sons, look at Paul Newman as kind of like a grandfather also. And, it's a big point of contention for both Paul Newman and Tom Hanks in the movie. Their characters, they have consciences. They both have a conscience, and they are both very spiritual, very religious, and so they both know, based upon their beliefs, they're not getting into heaven. They're not the kind of men that that are going to, and so they hate the decisions that they make. And it's really interesting to see that kind of dynamic with a lot of these. A lot of these characters are very irredeemable. Like in Goodfellas, there aren't many characters, even though they're very entertaining, they're not very good people, and you know that. But these characters, they have redeeming qualities, and it kind of reminds you of like John Wayne and The Searchers, where they're not good people, but there's something about them that
makes you want to root for them.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And even though Tom Hanks's character knows he's not going to go to heaven particularly, he wants that for his son. He doesn't want his son to go in the same line of work that he has. So let's talk about not only the acting of this particular film, but some of the maybe set design and clothing options and stuff like that. Did you like the accessories of the film?
I loved it. As a period piece, I thought this was really, really impressive because I feel like it's very hard to do a grand scale movie like this in a period piece in modern Chicago. And this is where a lot of the film was actually filmed. It was in Chicago, and they had to take in certain landmarks and really make it feel like it was an old, period of time. It really takes you back to the Depression era, the early 1930s. And I feel like that's very difficult to do with that. I mean, there's a scene where Tom Hanks and his son are walking down the street on the sidewalk, and there's just dozens of people all dressed up. And it's just like, how many extras they had to get? I mean, it's very hard to do that with a modern film. Epics are very hard to do, and not that this is an epic, but for that same reason, to have that many people to, get that kind of cooperation and to get the streets shut down so they can make this, it's really quite an undertaking. And they pulled it off perfectly. Again, it never took me out of the film. It always felt like I'm back in that era.
Yeah. I love Sam Mendes. Like I said before, he did American Beauty. Just his visual style. I don't know if he has the same cinematographer on each film, but when you see films like American Beauty, when you see films like Skyfall with James Bond, and even with this film, there were scenes where Paul Newman, spoiler alert, he gets taken out, but the way that scene was shot was so beautiful and artistic.
It was.
So I want to give kudos to both the director and cinematographer on that. They're both very, very talented guys. Let's go back to the actors a little bit. Our main bad guys, we've got two kind of main bad guys in this. We've got Daniel Craig, who is the son of Paul Newman's character. He's a guy that you're like, man, he's an unstable coward.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. He's a loose cannon.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, but he's still a man-child.
Yeah.
And so it's I wouldn't say it's a transformative role for him, because we would have to understand this is before he became James Bond, and so when we think of roles like this, typically they come after we've gotten to know them and accepted a certain style and delivery from them. But in some ways it really was, because I haven't seen him in a role like this before or since.
Yeah.
And he really was the linchpin as a bad guy in the movie. He's the one that set things in motion. He's the one that just caused so much strife for everybody in the film.
Let's talk about Jude Law a little bit.
Yes.
He's the hitman who's going after Tom Hanks and his son. He's kind of creepy in this film. What'd you think about him?
Very creepy. And this is what I would call a transformative role for him, because Jude Law usually plays a little bit more smooth talking, sometimes pretty boy kind of role, like in Sherlock Holmes or in Side Effects and that sort of thing. Very intellectual. This one, he was at the beginning of the film kind of methodical, and then when he kind of got into his character whenever he was interacting with Tom Hanks before he attempted to assassinate him, he was very lively and just very idiosyncratic, and just a very, very dark character for him. He wasn't the dapper, handsome guy that he usually is in movies. In this one, dirty fingernails, bad teeth, balding on top, and just a very different look for Jude Law, and he pulled it off very well.
Nothing wrong with balding on top. I'm going out and saying that, going out on a limb. Really quickly before we call it adieu, Paul Newman, he's just a legendary actor, great, but I got to know, what'd you think about his Irish accent in this film?
I never really thought of him as an Irish accent. I thought of it like as a Midwestern Irish descent sort of accent. It felt very Chicago. I thought in that sense it succeeded and it was believable. Like you'd mentioned, I'm very biased towards Paul Newman. He's a legend. So
of course,
he wasn't my favorite character in the movie, but he's the kind of guy that lends a certain personality to a film. And like with Tom Hanks, both great leading men in this movie, and it was cool to see him, and not in a leading role, which you wouldn't expect from him at his age at that point. He was in the twilight of his career in 2002 when this movie came out. But the way he played off Tom Hanks, it felt very natural, like he was a father figure to Tom Hanks, who I think is one of the best leading men in our generation. For sure. The way that he can carry like a movie, the way that Kurt Warner could carry a mediocre football franchise, is very impressive.
Wow. A Rams quote. I love it, man. That's cool. Did the wife watch this with you?
Yes, she did. She thought it was very good too. We both enjoyed the score. It was Thomas Newman, who's related to Randy Newman, but not Paul Newman, oddly enough.
All these Newmans, man.
I know. Newman.
It's like Smith.
Yeah.
So is this a movie you think your friends would like, your buddies? Is this like a movie that you'd sit down and watch an action movie with them kind of thing?
No, but it's a little bit slower. It's less than 2 hours, and even though every scene really bleeds into the next very well, it flows very well, it does feel slow at times. It feels closer to 2.5 or 3 hours, as a lot of gangster movies do. And this one, like a lot of gangster movies, does not have a happy ending. It's about as happy as it gets in a gangster film. The themes of, again, violence and straying away from that and finding a better life. They do a great job of exploring that and kind of bringing home that message. But it never felt, very preachy. And I think a lot of my friends would enjoy that movie and say that it's good, but I don't know that they would be as enthralled with it as we were.
Let's watch Road to Perdition. Put it in the DVD player.
That's right, man. Drink some beers, watch Road to Perdition.
Matt, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, great insight on this film. Love having you on the show. We'll be back next week. Jake will be on the show. We'll be doing a lot of his movies. We'll be doing the foreign film, The Hidden Fortress, which was kind of a movie that spawned Star Wars a little bit.
Wow, very cool.
We'll also be doing the movie AI, which Jude Law was in that one. And we'll be finishing things off with Blade Runner with Harrison Ford. It's all coming your way next Saturday at 6 p.m. For Matt and Chris, we are the Screen Team on KWOC.